So we've been asked to chant and bear in mind and share blessings with Nigel Norton and family who were disturbed by suicide. I imagine his suicide died on the 15th of September 2007. Chant the salutations and offerings in Pali this evening. Supatipanno bhagavato sāvaka saṅgho saṅghang namāmi. Namayam buddhassa bhagavato pupapaka namakarang romasi. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Andamayam buddhanusatinayang Roma se. Tango panna bhagavan dang evam kalyano desano abhagano yande beso bhagava araham ma sambuddho veja charana sampanno sangato lokavito anuttaro purisa dhamma arante sanda deva manutsanam do bhagavati. Andamayam buddha pikiting Roma se. Buddha-varahanda varanda ningana viyoto Sudha piññāna karuna samagatantu Moende siyo sujananang malang wasuro Vananda mahanda maranam siratsa jinendang Buddhoyo Bhapaninam Saranang Emamuttamang Pattamano Sadedanam Vanandamidam Buddha Sahasamita Sovabhuddho Me Sami Kissaro Buddha Nga Sanganda Vidanda Jahida Same Munda Sahamneya Sariranji Vidanjidam Vandandoham Jalitsami Dase Vasapoditang Nandime Saranang Anyang Dome Saranam Varam Sanjavahajena Vandayam Sadhu Sasane Muname Vandamane Nayang Ponyang Sudamida Zambe Vyandarayame Esam Dasa Dejasa. Andamayam dhammanusatinayang karoma se swakato bhagavata dhammo sandendengo vakaligo ipasigo Vopanayengo panjandang vedidabo nyuhiti andamayang dhamma pikiting Roma se
Svakadanda Dikonayo Gavasena Seyo Yomagabangabariya Tiwimo Kapedo Namongolongabandana Tandaridari Wandamahanda Maharam Dhammamedang Nammoyo Babaninam Saranang Ye Mamuttamang Dudiyano Sadena Namavandamidam Sirenahang Dhamma Asamida Suvadhammo Me Mikisaro Dhammo Dungadangana Vidhada Jahida Same Namma Sahamni Sariranji Vinanji Dan Vandandoham Jale Sami Namma Vasanamanang Nandi Me Dharanang Anyang Dhammo Me Varam Nene Nanjang Mahajena Vadeyam Nuzadane Namame Vanamanena Punyam Patundamida Sabbe Biyandarayame Esam Tasate Jasa Dhamayang Sanghanusatinayang Romasi Sampatipanno Bhagavanto Savaka Sangho Vajjapatipanno Bhagavanto Savaka Sangho Niyaya Patipanno Bhagavanto Savaka Sangho Samyaja Patipanno Bhagavanto Savaka Sangho Yandinam Jadari Parisayam Niyata Parisabhokala Isa Bhagavanto Savaka Sangho Ahuneyo Hineyo Anjali Karaniyo Anuttaram Punya Tang Lokasati Andamayam Sangha Pikiting Roma Se Sadhamma Jo Sumpati Padi Kona Biyoto Yonda Bindo Variya Kala Sangha Seto Siyala Di Dhamma Pavara Yankaya Jido Vanda Mahanda Mari Anaganang Susanang Sangoyo Bhavani Nam Charanang E Mamuttamang Dandiyano Dane Nanam Vandamidam Sirenahang Sangha Sahasamida Sova Sangho Me Mikisaro Sangho Dunga Sanghada Javindada Hidasame Sangha Sahamne Yade Misariranji Tanjitang Vandandoham Jale Sami Sangha Supandi Nandi Me Saranang Anyam Sangho Me Saranang Varam Nenenandan Javajena Vandeyam Yusasane Sangame Vandamanena Punya Pasudamida Sabebi Tarayame Mahesam Tasate Jasam
Yeah, we do precepts. So it's the Uposatha night, evening. He's going, as you know, these are about phases of the moon. Phases of the moon, and it's a kind of calendar. And the old tradition was that every time this moon comes around, it's like a whole change. You go from dark moon, full moon, dark moon, change. So every time there's a change, senses, let's get back to resetting, establishing our values, establishing our core principles, establishing what's true. Let's put down the circumstances of our lives, daily, this, that and the other, and get back to what's the sacred, which goes on beyond events. So they'd often people come listen to Dhamma Talks in that time, and it's where that was a tradition, kind of by part of the culture, and the sense of the white robe, wearing white robes for that evening, and committing to the 8 precepts just for that evening. To let's do this now. Put aside that. Come back to this basic re-establishment. So, I think this is useful. If you get it in mind, it's not just about rules, it's also about values. If you look at these precepts, you can recognize they're boundary lines around our sense of losing respect for each other, abuse, losing respect for our own mind, intoxication, losing respect for Dhamma, just frittering our time away in entertainments. A sense of really going off, losing this sense of, balance and mutual respect and restraint over the senses and the indriyas, the faculties that rush out, just containing it, collecting it. It's huge power, the human mind. You don't drive it, it's like driving a Porsche with no brakes and no steering. So you just collect it. And then there's this sense that this is a vehicle for happiness and skill and inner treasure, inner wealth. So it's always that's the kind of framing of the precepts. It's not guilt and punishment as much as love and reward. So there's a way of doing this, and people in the monastery should be familiar with this. So anybody would like to, do the formal request for the 8 precepts and give the 8 precepts. If our people are watching online, you might like to reflect upon the 5 precepts, and whatever time to establish those core principles. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dutiyampi dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dutiyampi saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Datiyampi buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Datiyampi dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Datiyampi saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Ti saranagamaṇaṃ nititaṃ. Vānati bhātā veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. Adinna dana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. Abharamacariya veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. Mutsavada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. Suramiraya majjapamaddhāna veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. Vikala bhojana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. Nacha gita vadita visukha tasana malaghanda vilepana dharana mandana vibhutsanadhana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. Uccasayana mahasayana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. Imani atta sikkhapadani samadhiyāmi. Imani atta sikkhapadani silena sukhateṃ yanti silena bhoga sampada silena nibbodheṃ yanti tasmā silaṃ visodhaye. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammaṃ Sanghaṃ Namasami. So, we're cultivating and reflecting on the fruits of cultivation, and enjoying the fruits of cultivation. This is a heart process. It's important to both lay down the seeds, cultivate, which means often careful, sustained, patient, letting things grow, appreciating the results, feeling nourished, enriched, sustained by that. Gradually clearing one's sense of anguish and anxiety and grudge and fear and all the pains of life. That's for one's well-being in this very life. Should be, we may think this is about mystical experiences. Perhaps well-being is a mystical experience. Considering how distraught and hurt people get by being around, and lack of respect, lack of mutual respect, lack of proper standards, lack of proper values, lack of caring for each other, lack of that. And how painful that is, and damaging, not just painful but damaging. So often people have to just really do repairing and damaging. So it's not just pain is momentary, brief, but damage is when stuff gets into your heart and destroys your faith or your balance or your sense of trust. One gets fearful, negative, embittered. As we see today, somebody reflecting on a person's suicide. Human beings are the only creatures that kill themselves. That's how, though we may value our intellectual clarity doesn't stop you killing yourself. Bears don't kill themselves. No, it's loss of heart, isn't it? And it's that important. If we lose heart, what's the point? Continuing. So cultivating heart, it's not just some kind of, esoteric experience. It's actually just sustaining. Without it, you're in trouble. Heart gets damaged by betrayal and abuse, or sometimes just because there's just no proper care, so that you don't get built right. You get built nervous, mistrustful, fearful. Feeling you're inadequate, You've got to do something, to prove yourself, very isolated. This is not uncommon. We can kind of, where does it begin? Generally, people who abuse are those who were abused. You pass it on. You've never really known what it's like to feel steady and full and complete. Chances are you've got kind of cranky, behaviour and flares of anger, irritability, lashing out, and then doing damage to others who then get damaged and they pass that on. So we realise our heart is constantly in the field of becoming. It's being shaped by what affects it. These aren't sensations. It's not physical sensations that affect it. It's love and hate. Scorn and respect, and virtue and trustworthiness and jealousy and betrayal. That's what affects it. And the kind of really poignant thing is that we cannot be immune from physical discomfort. We cannot say, let there be no cold, let there need be no sharp objects, let there need be no physical problems, let there be no sickness. We can't say that. But we do have some say over what our hearts could become. We do have some say over, I need not, scorn, despise, abuse other people, or other creatures. I do have some say over that. I don't have to do that, It's possible. And realizing if we're not cultivating, then the likelihood is we will be offensive and to others. We don't need to do that. But heart gets stuck, gets lost, gets confused, feels oppressed, constricted. So we have to really put some attention into strengthening it, clarifying it, and healing it. So we're not irritable and insensitive. It's we kind of get born, like physical birth occurs, there you are, you've done it. But the heart is being reborn every moment. It's constantly, developing and changing and shifting. It just never stops. So the theme is, if you just keep putting it in an atmosphere of goodwill and steadiness and reliable, it will be shaped by that. And this is called skillful becoming. And the Buddha praised this. If we can't, this is something we can do, and if we don't become skillful, we become purely the heirs to what's happened to us. Karma. We just become subject to events that have happened in the past. We want to get out of that, actually, reset. And if we don't do this, then the chance that we never really step out of the shadows. We never really step out of our history. So that fortune of becoming acts as an abiding place, where the citta can step free of compulsions and then begin to really cultivate deep penetrative understanding of cause and effect, conditions, and the relinquishment of, compulsion, compulsive conditions, compulsive urges, compulsive passions, compulsive attachments. Because now it's got some strength, it stands on its own. It's not hanging on to belonging, it's not hanging on to some kind of egotism, it's not hanging on to views and opinions, it's not hanging on to me and mine. It doesn't need that. It stands in its own well-being, it doesn't need this stuff. And the thing is, if we don't stand in that well-being, we will need that stuff. If we don't find our well-being, we will tend to say, I want to be famous, I want to be acknowledged, I want to be important, I want to be effective, I want to be efficient, I want to be this, I want to be that, Of course. That's instinctive. Then we get grasping and competitive, and he's got more than I got, and she always gets this and I don't get it, and this kind of stuff goes on. Holding on. And then stress starts happening. Yeah. So it's cultivation. Because it's heart cultivation, it's not something you can really, do with your intellect or mind-driven. Like, I could learn French, for example. My brain could learn that, but I can't learn trust from a book. And I could sit there and look at the word, think about it, think how good it would be to be that way, how good to be, feel confident, and try to boost myself. But it's all, brain work doesn't saturate the heart, it just stays in as ideas. Heart cultivation is a different thing, different dimension. And it's important to recognize this, because naturally we receive these teachings as words, as ideas. There's a vast and dazzling array of real, definitely teachings and truths that are powerful and potent, very elaborate. But, so you can get into kind of intellectual, that's great. And, but to distill that into heart experience, that's cultivation. So generally you're studying something, you should think of terms, if you read one, they say you read a book and walk 1,000 miles. It's rather like that. If you spend 1 hour studying, you should spend 10 hours practicing it. At least. Sometimes, even a few ideas, really getting them in, this is deep stuff, it can take months, years. Because it's to actually get it to move in there. But what makes it more possible is if we really, operate from the heart, we begin to value those heart qualities above all else. And so, very simply speaking, the Buddha, when he gave his initial teachings to people who'd never had any understanding, he said, you begin with generosity. This is not a difficult idea. Intellectually, it's pretty bad. And he said, your generosity can be material things, hospitality, please share. Can I help you? And it can be medicine, how can I help you? Or it can be just advice. We give, just that turning, rather than calculate. And so you immediately, right there, you're entering into that particular organ, you could say the organ of the heart, and you feel Why does he say this? Because everybody likes it. We all like that experience of giving. So it's a fun experience. You're joyful, yeah? And you're not nervous, and you kind of that's the way people normally connect to each other. Go and see somebody, bring a bunch of flowers, bring them a gift. That's the way we move into a sense of mutuality. Whereby the normal social anxieties that can occur between people are easily dispelled. And social anxiety is very normal. Am I doing the right thing? Is this the right time? What does she think of me? Am I being too strong? Am I not making myself clear? How am I looking in her eyes, in his eyes? Am I doing okay? That. Am I welcome? Am I not welcome? All this kind of human stuff. And so on, and of course, the purification of it is no, nothing's expected back. Just because I got the gift already. I got the gift of giving. That felt good already. And then the Buddha said this is cultivation, because then you're switching on the right piece. You're switching on the right organ, and you can do it, and it's nice, and you feel good, and you can see results in terms of how you relate to other people, and how other people relate to you, because the essential thing is what we're doing is recognizing, entering into the world of mutuality, and this is a big step actually, because a lot of our culture these days is based upon individuality rather than mutuality. Individuality, individual success, to be better than, to be competitive, to be the top, to be better than, to prove yourself. To prove yourself. And if you prove yourself, then you can hold your head up. Okay. You look good enough, you're wearing the right clothes, fine, you're acceptable. So it's very self-conscious and competitive. And if you're not good enough, then, get left out. And that's sad, and it's evident, and it's also abused, because people get left out just because they don't have enough money, and then suddenly you're seen as lesser than, and you can't get the education, you can't get the health, you can't get the legal assistance, you can't get what you need to have in this society, because it's all paid for. There's no giving in it. You pay for it. That's the way it is. But can you just recognise what it's like if somebody pays you for something? Okay, you pay me to give you a talk. Okay, I want 15 quid. No, come on, 50 quid. Pay me to give you a talk. Right? How do you think that would affect me? I'd feel I've got to do a good talk, I've got to make top class talk, win it, and then so forth. Very unpleasant experience. And then you say, was that worth 50 quid? No. And we're looking at the whole thing in the wrong way, Whereas it's freely given and freely listened to, and you can you can ignore it if you like. That's okay. Then in a sense of just, it's the proper way to transmit things. And yet you recognise then we have to, paying for medical care. And doctors have got to live, of course, but isn't it strange you have to pay somebody to take your pain away? So if you see someone in pain, wouldn't you want to them to not be in pain. Right? Of course you would. So you say, well, sorry, you haven't got any money, sorry you're not getting it. How would that feel? Yeah. But because of that, the professionalism is, you get these crazy situations where there's some accident, a doctor won't help because he might get sued. You know, if he makes some mistake, he might get litigation against him. Because, you know, this whole crazy world of paying for compassion. What does that do to it? You know? So, but isn't it quite natural that any one of us, if you just this quality of heart, you see something suffering, you want to stop it? That's compassion. You don't have to say, how do I practice compassion? If you enter the territory of mutuality to others as to myself, to recognizing when the self-boundaries dissolve, we're in a rather pleasant place. When the self-boundaries resolve, we're not anxious and we're not measuring who's better or whether I'm worthwhile and whether I'm wasting your time or whether I'm good enough or you're good enough or how long, it's kind of, all that stuff dissolves. We're in a rather pleasant place where all kinds of natural energies can start to flow and we feel nourished by that. Yeah. So you enter those territories of loving kindness and compassion and appreciation and serenity, you know, which is, things are difficult now, let's just hold faith with each other. Things are difficult, let's not jump to conclusions, let's, you know, just hold faith, hold the balance, let things change. The heart can do that. So essential because, you know, if we learn to review our experience through the mind and the brain, the statistics just, you know, daily statistics, you feed on daily statistics, you know, you really get depressed. And feeling impotent. And what's the point? You know? It's abstract. Entering in this territory of mutuality, you know, where the self-boundaries soften. And that becomes possible because, enhanced, because if there's proper respect, non-abuse, non-manipulation, non-deceiving, you know, non-domination, then we feel we can let some of those self-boundaries down. We feel safe, we feel we can trust. And naturally, once you're in a trusting sense with other people, this heart energies flow quite naturally. Yeah. So this is the way the Buddha taught it. Dana, sila, yeah, and so there's qualities of heart. And that by itself, if you contemplate and dwell in it, and the results of those, and the causes of those, the causes of that, because they're happy, and they take stress out of life. And the right kind of happiness. Happiness of ease and freedom from fear and freedom from anxiety, freedom from bitterness, and they take stress out of life. Freedom from having to perform, to be the best or on top or great or anything. Take the stress out of it. It's that kind of happiness. And you can dwell in that. Dwelling in that, one's able to let go, renounce, start giving up unnecessary this, that and the other. And you can see how people who haven't cultivated that, there is no limit to the greed, because they're trying to feed themselves, acquiring millions, billions, properties, gobbling things up, wild projects, fame. What's he trying to do? He's trying to feed, but it doesn't go in. It's like say the Buddha said, the gold could rain gold, and you could not drink it. It won't satisfy you. It's the wrong stuff. So that movement, I saw this news clip. They found this. They designed this Rolls-Royce car, which they sold to somebody anonymous on Flizzy. Car cost £30 million. It's a nice car. Cost £30 million for a car. Well, it's more than a car, it's a dream. Every luxury in it. But, wow. Wow. Does that, what could you do with £30 million? How much pain could you solve with £30 million? How much, famine could you, how many people could you look after with £30 million? And probably these people spend £30 million on a car. You've obviously got quite a few billion in the bank. How much good could you do with that? And yet you could spend £30 million on a car. What kind of sanity is that? It's completely gone off the value sphere, in my opinion. And so this nourishment of heart means you just, you don't really wouldn't want a car like that anyway. What can you do with it? Fancy, driving to Petersfield to pick up some food for the cat in your £30 million car? I don't think so. Where can you take the thing? So just, I don't want it. It's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment. It's to be that imbalanced, to be that out of touch, to be that imbalanced in terms of you can't share your wealth, to be that imbalanced and present it. Look, this is how greedy I am. I feel ashamed rather than pleased. It's how selfish I am. Who could be the most selfish? So then, that's what people do. But then, just be more modestly, just considering, sometimes people say, well, how do you practice loving kindness? How do you do it? How do you practice loving kindness? So I find myself get irritable, and I've got to practice loving kindness. Should I practice loving kindness to? How can I practice loving kindness to Vladimir Putin? How can I practice loving kindness to da 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 da? You've got this kind of, he's not worth my loving kindness. We had a few years back, we had a couple of rather strange bhikkhus here who lived next to each other, and they weren't getting on very well. You see, so one lived in one room, one lived in the other room. We were always getting into conflict over misunderstandings and different ways of seeing things. And then one monk said, I'm practicing. I spent an hour practicing loving kindness towards this mother monk. Then I wasted my time because it didn't change him a bit. I think I wasted a whole hour of loving kindness on that guy. He's still... So I'm not going to do any more loving... I'm not going to send my loving kindness that way. It's wasting it. I'll send it to somebody else who can make use of it. It's not. I think this is a bit off track. You see, because that's the way the mind can think of things. Like he's somebody who annoys me, so I'll throw him with some loving kindness. That will change him. Something else. And really, it's more like the Buddha never told us to do that. When you look in the sutras, it says you generate this vihara, this abiding place of goodwill, and you just start to expand that sense in any direction. It doesn't mean, turn left at Petersfield, that direction. It's just like directions of the heart. What comes into the heart. So open the heart, any direction, past, present, future, near, far, just whatever comes in you. Let that sense of a real energy of care and concern and warm-heartedness just extending. You're finding something where it's getting challenged. Something you're irritated by. Just let's look at that again. What's irritating me? Their behaviour's irritating. And just recognize they behave because of causes and conditions. That's not themselves, that's causes and conditions. That's why they behave like that, because of causes. They're messed up, essentially. So, they got the disease. They got the disease of selfishness. Yeah. Okay, so we all get a touch of that. So instead we turn towards compassion. Doesn't mean you expect him to change, but you don't let these obsessive grudges saturate your heart and turn you sour. So you keep that vihara established. As you open your heart, then anyone who you feel you have difficulties with, you recognize the heart is getting stopped there, then it needs to reflect upon not self, these are causes and conditions, this is a perception arising in my mind, and I don't need to keep the ill will going. What they are, that's their... What they are or they aren't, that's up to them to do their work on or to waste their life with or whatever, but I don't let the sense of bitterness, grudge stay in my heart because this is my territory, And if they stay there, those bitterness, grudge, irritation, however justifiable it is, that stays in your heart. That's what you live with. That's what you die with. That's you're getting results of that. Yeah. So we're not looking at a tribunal of who's right and wrong. We're looking very pragmatically at what clarifies and purifies and elevates the heart internally. I don't need the resentment. How do I work with it? Well, consider beings are heirs to their karma. Beings act in foolish ways. Beings get deluded. That's his issue. That's her issue. I have been foolish. I have messed up. I have made mistakes. This is my carelessness. Then make the resolution. I should not act in this way. And then instead of going into bitterness, just forgive. These are causes and conditions. Don't keep the conditions going. Don't keep the conditions going because they'll shape you. You know, you can have issues with a partner, marriage, children who didn't behave properly. Yeah, totally true. Right, yes, absolutely. The tribunal will not cure the pain, will not clear it. Judging people will not clear it. Right and wrong will not clear it. Yeah. And so it stays there. Feeling let down, feeling disappointed, feeling betrayed, it will not change it. Instead we feel those heart energies where they go hard and hurt and wounded, and you stay steady, calm yourself, return to where you feel confident with this warmth, and just keep spreading, expanding your attention, like moving the energy of goodwill over these areas which are inflamed, sore, bitter. Not, you're not, and that's it. So there's no mental demand, go away. It's just that. Now if I put medicine on a wound, the medicine cures it. If I put medicine on the wound saying, go away wound, go away, stop it, stop being that way, that's useless. If I don't put medicine on the wound and say, that's a wound, it shouldn't be like this, it's terrible, that wound is terrible, it shouldn't have been that way, I've made a mistake, they hurt me, it's terrible, that doesn't do it. You don't need the mental dialogue. Just put the medicine on it. So it's really, it's very beautiful. Very beautiful. Because when we don't do the dialogue, we don't do the topic, we don't do the event, we don't do the, he said this but he did that. She never did this and they ought to have done that. We don't do that dialogue, we don't do this tribunal, we're not in a law court of right and wrong, we're not into punishment and who's right and who's wrong. And you've got to really, one has to really recognise the temptation of that. This is the individual asserting their rights. And that's understandable. But, don't we want to get beyond that to something that's just really compassionate and understanding the frailties and the problems of the human condition? So that, because I've decided he's a failure, enough, but then somebody else is going to annoy me, or I'm going to make a mistake and hurt somebody else. So it never ends. But if you're dwelling in the heart, the chances that you live in a respectful, caring way with other beings means you do less damage to others, or no damage to others, and actually generate harmony and support in others. And you feel good. And whether they deserve it or not doesn't really matter. That's a different topic altogether. So we don't, so you very directly, when you take these cultivations of loving kindness and compassion, or metta, karuna, and so forth, take them deeply into the heart and use them in the territory of the heart. There's no story there. There's just ache. There's just tremble. There's just sorrow. And then just refrain from creating the story of who and why and when. Then you can acknowledge these shadows and these inflamed areas and these sore patches, and just, it's okay. It's okay to be that way. That's the way it is. You know? We don't lament over I shouldn't be like. That's the way it is. And in that sense, it begins with that acceptance, rather than shrinking away from one's irritability or depression. It's like this. Don't move away from the wound, but do, and you'll find that if you don't move away from it, and you don't go into the stories, and you don't go into the self-imagery, I'm a victim, I'm pathetic, whatever, you stop that, and the heart will do it for you. You don't have to have the dialogue, the heart will naturally begin to warm and move through these difficult areas of our lives. And I kind of think this is what we've got to do, really. In terms of, we have so many years on this planet, or this body has so many years on this planet. And if you really, just take a thought in mind. Now, what if there is such a thing as previous lives? And in some Buddhist traditions, this is totally unquestioned. And then they say, in this case, all of us have, betrayed our parents sometime or another. All of us have messed up. All of us have done brutal things. All of us have been selfish and stupid at some time or another. So who's right? So, like, who's pointing the finger at who? Who's the right one who's pointing the finger at who? Who got the right to judge anybody else? Where did that come from? Yeah, where did it come from? That thing, that drive that separates us. I am different from you. Then in this case I'm worse than you. In this case I'm better than you. This individuality, this sense of ego, this sense of self. Now, if that, so I got no standpoint to judge anybody, because what I can know is, when I get careless, I can know that. I can directly feel that. When I get annoyed, I can feel that. And when I get frightened, I can feel that. Has nobody ever? We've all experienced these very human qualities, and in this sense of acknowledging that, then we take those resolutions to not follow, not to pick up those, ignorant tendencies, and instead generate goodwill. You have this possibility. You have no possibility to change the past. You've got no possibility to change everybody else. But you do have a possibility to, this is the possibility. And maybe we just got to go through this life working out these tendencies we have with ourselves and others to form these exclusive self-positions and get beyond it. And these generations, these cultivations of goodwill, compassion, appreciation, gladness, appreciation. Spend some time acknowledging the gifts that have happened, the gift of life, the gift of being on a green planet. Fresh air, clean water. While it's there, before it goes. The gift of breathing in and breathing out, without pain, before that changes, before it becomes painful. The gift of being able to think before you get Alzheimer's or dementia. And instead of using the thinking mind to concoct crazy ideas, this is a precious capacity, let's learn to manage it, steer it, do good with it, because it might not last that much longer. You know, a sense of more detail. And the good that others do. It's good that we see around us. Keep your eyes open for it. The willingness, the cooperativeness, the giving, and then you really begin to dwell in a different world, in a heart world. Mm-hmm. Sometimes nothing much. Relationships, what else is there to say? Really. Every day, or most every day, I really more and more reflect upon my parents. I mean, I didn't really deeply appreciate them when I was in my teens, when I lived with them. But now I recognise they gave everything they could. They gave me everything they could. They may not have had everything, but everything they had, they gave. Wow. You know. And there was no big sentimental, it was just normal. Absolutely. Dad worked himself crazy so kid could get decent upbringing. Mother worked hard so the kid could get decent upbringing. There was no deal in it. They didn't make a big deal out of it, they just did it. I think, wow, that's amazing, you know. I hope I hope I can somehow live up to that example, just to give and give and give. You know, I hope I don't despise the gift of life that they gave me, and the upbringing they gave me. Because they're dead now, so. Yeah. I have a brother, as you probably might know. My brother has Alzheimer's, so he's in a home. And my elder brother, he was always, had different ways of doing things, but he was always kind, cheerful, supportive, looked after me when I was little. And then he was, doing his thing, businessman, and now he's this kind of Parkinson's and Alzheimer's in a home. All his wealth, all his belongings just mean nothing. So I think I'll go and see him, just because you have to, because he's your brother. And I mean, one time he couldn't speak, and he was completely kind of unavailable. It's kind of like completely blanked out. So I sat next to him, and his body's twitching with the Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. So I'm massaging him, getting his legs to relax a bit. I hold his hand. Nothing happening. Speak to him, nothing happens. Try throw something else. Speak to him, try to get something. Nothing happens. I'm holding it, so just squeezing his hand. Nothing's happening. So look, so I shouldn't demand that he speaks to me. I'll just hold his hand. Hold his hand, and then what can I do? I just love my brother. So practicing that, and so I started chanting Metta Sutta in Pali. Squeezing his hand and just chanting, bending over. Then his other hand comes over and takes my hand and gives it a big squeeze. I think that's enough. These two old guys holding each other's hand and squeezing it. That took me a 6-hour trip to do that. Absolutely worthwhile. I think if all I ever did in my life was squeeze my brother's hand, that's good enough. Because at that sense you felt something really was completely understood on a non-verbal level. The brain's gone, non-verbal level, something was completely understood, where it meant something, where it counted, something was totally understood and transmitted. Loving kindness, gratitude, acceptance, friendship, just all, no words, just totally there. Thinking, yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. Yeah. You know, and then it's often these times when people pass away that we realise, suddenly all that, you know, what I really wanted to have made sure I did or said before somebody passes away is, I like to say thank you, I'd like to say forgive me, I like to say I forgive you, I like to say bless you, move on. You know? And all these things that are just, intellectually, heart level. Because when we're liberating each other from our fear and our anxiety and our sense of having to be important or necessary or useful or clear or competent, we keep liberating each other from these positions that we adopt. You know? And if we can, cultivate like that, then we're getting it wrong, it doesn't matter. Make mistakes, it doesn't matter. We get upset, we can get over it. You know? And that's the treasure of the heart. That's the possibility. And then when it does that, you don't get those grasped at persons, grasped at life stories, grasped at narratives going on in your head. You've cleared it. You know? That's what it means, grasping. It means you end up with a head full of beings who don't exist, just giving you problems. Yeah. So it's good to give yourself some time to consider some of these things, and if you trust the heart, get it right, look after it, it will be a reliable guide, for where you really need to go. So, offer these few words for your consideration, and may you be well.